leads. Both cases had gone cold.
To be realistic, we get 500 a month. We had one family disappeared July 25th. Now we're up to November 2nd. So because of the caseload, you're not trying to pin cases together. The only similarity was a newspaper ad.
Based on the discovery of Paul Cosner's brown Honda, Brunn and her partner reopened his case and searched the vehicle for clues. They found a driver's license belonging to a man named Scott Stapley. They found a stun gun and several unspent bullets on the floor of the car. A recent electric bill addressed to an unknown woman named Clara Lynn Balaz was found under the passenger seat. And in the roof of the car, investigators found a single bullet hole.
Can you see that from up there, partner?
The trajectory of the bullet indicated the shot was fired from the back seat. The investigators sprayed luminol around the interior of the vehicle. Luminol reacts with proteins in blood, making even traces of blood fluoresce. High-velocity blood spatter associated with a gunshot wound appeared on the roof next to the front passenger seat. Brunn and her partner now suspected they would never find Cosner alive. With Leonard Lake dead and his partner Charles Ng at large, investigators could only wonder how many more victims they might find at the end of this trail of blood. Leonard Lake's mysterious suicide had now launched a full-scale police investigation. Brunn and her partner drove to the home of Leonard Lake's mother, who lived about an hour outside of San Francisco.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Detective Tom Eisenman with the police department.
At the house, they were surprised to find Clara Lynn Balaz, the woman whose name appeared on the electric bill found in Cosner's car.
Okay.
Clara Lynn Balaz was Lake's ex-wife. They had been married for 3 years, but divorced a year earlier.
It's been a long drive up.
Detectives suspected she might be the woman Lake addressed in his suicide note. They asked Balaz how an electric bill in her name wound up in Paul Cosner's car. Balaz explained the address on the bill was for a cabin her family owned in Calaveras County in Northern California. Although Brunn and her partner were eager to search the cabin, Balaz claimed she was too busy to take them there until the next day. The detectives postponed their search until the following morning and instructed Balaz not to visit the property in the meantime.
10 o'clock. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks.
So we called the Calaveras Sheriff's Department and told them that we were going to be coming up the following morning and why we were going and if it was possible for them to have somebody keep an eye on the property.
Calaveras County covers over 1,100 square miles of wild terrain. A force of 34 officers protected the entire county in 1985. There hadn't been need for more. The sheriff sent 2 deputies to watch the cabin, which was located outside the town of Wilseyville. A metal gate prevented them from driving onto the property.
Because of their manpower shortage, they couldn't have somebody sit there for the next 24 hours, but they would make passing calls, which was reasonable.
The following morning, Brunn and her partner arranged to meet Clara Lynn Balaz outside the Wilseyville post office. They were surprised when she arrived with Lake's mother.
And at that point, Clara Lynn admitted that they had driven up the night before. And the pretext was that Leonard was very untidy and they wanted to tidy up the cabin.
Concerned that Balaz and Lake's mother might have compromised evidence at the cabin, Brunn, her partner, and the Calaveras County sheriffs followed them to the property. The detectives asked Balaz about a cinder block bunker near the cabin. She said she didn't have the key and would not give them permission to search it. Lacking sufficient probable cause for a warrant,
No, it's a
the
private
detectives would have to limit their search to the cabin alone.
But at this point, we were still more interested in getting into the house, so we didn't want to antagonize her because this was a consent search. Other than that, we would have had to stop and go get a search warrant at that point.
While her partner questioned Balaz, Detective Brunn searched the house.
I came up last night just for a few minutes.
She noticed something odd about the bed. There were holes drilled into the bedposts and the floor. It seemed designed to tie someone up.
And I was standing in front of this bookcase, and I happened to turn around, and all of a sudden I recognized a piece of equipment. And then it dawns on me where I had seen it. It was the Dubs.
The video equipment, Brunn recalled, had been stolen from the home of Harvey Dubs, the San Francisco man who vanished with his family 11 months earlier.
So I went over and called my office. I said, would you mind checking our inventory and read me the serial number? He proceeded to start reading the serial number, and then I gave him the last 3 numbers from the piece of paper that I had in my hand. And so at that point, we realized that now this is even getting bigger. It's not just Mr. Cosner, now we have the Dubs. And at that point, Clara Lynn got very nervous and said, you've been here long enough, I want you to leave.
To learn what other secrets the isolated cabin held, Detective Brunn would need to obtain a search warrant. The investigators left the property, but this time they made certain the cabin would be secure until they returned. As investigators conducted a search of Leonard Lake's cabin in Calaveras County, they had discovered video equipment that belonged to a family who had been missing for nearly a year. This gave them sufficient probable cause to petition the judge for a warrant. Ron McFall led the investigation for the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office.
We did get one that day, and later that afternoon we went back to the residence to conduct a search of the residence and the property and what looked like a tool shed at first.
The tool shed was a cinder block structure that bordered the driveway. Clara Lynn Balaz referred to it as a fallout shelter.
Got it. Good, good.
Leonard Lake had been a survivalist, and this was his fortress against nuclear holocaust. As the heavy door swung open, investigators could only wonder what they might find inside.
And we went into the tool shed and we saw 21 photos of young ladies 18 to 23 years old. And so we were at that point really concerned about who are these females, who are these ladies?
Many of the photos were of young girls in various stages of undress. Some were nude. It was unclear who the subjects were or where they had been photographed. Everyone feared the pictures might be trophies, such as those serial killers often keep of their victims. They also found a journal written by Leonard Lake. In it, he wrote of The Collector, a novel about a butterfly collector who captures his ultimate prize, a young girl named Miranda. In his journal, Lake writes, "The Collector. Has it really been near 20 years I've carried this fantasy? And Miranda, how fitting, my lovely little prisoner of the future." In other entries, Lake referred to a series of operations under the heading of the Miranda Project. The investigators could only speculate as to what this meant, but it seemed ominous.
Even here, Ron. Okay. And you'll see where there's some what appears to be.
100 yards from the bunker, Ron McFall and the other investigators noticed the ground had been scarred by a series of several fires.
We noticed at that point approximately 7 different burn sites on the property. We decided to look at the burn sites a little further, and we found what we thought may be bone fragments, but we really weren't sure.